The text message hit my phone at 2:47 a.m. Unusual activity detected on account ending in 4829. Log in to review. My heart stopped. Account 4829 was the retirement fund I'd spent 10 years building for my parents. Every overtime shift, every skipped vacation, every sorry I can't afford it dinner with friends. I grabbed my laptop with shaking hands. The balance showed $847. It should have been $127,000. My name is Tatum, and I'm 33 years old. For the past decade, I've worked 2 jobs, full-time at a financial planning firm and weekends doing bookkeeping for small businesses. While my friends were getting married, buying houses, and living their lives, I was putting every spare dollar into that account. Mom and Dad deserve security after raising 2 kids on teacher salaries. I still remember the night I opened that account. I was 23, fresh out of college, sitting at their kitchen table with all the paperwork spread out. "This is for you both," I'd said, sliding the documents across the worn formica. "I'm going to make sure you never have to worry about money when you retire." Dad had tears in his eyes. Mom hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "You're such a good daughter," she'd whispered. "We're so lucky to have you." Now, staring at that devastating balance, I felt like I was going to throw up. I called the bank's emergency line. The automated system cheerfully informed me that a withdrawal of $126,152.77 had been processed yesterday at 3:15 p.m., authorized by account holder Nora Garcia, my mother. I threw on clothes and drove to their house, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. It was almost 4 a.m., but I didn't care. I needed answers. The porch light was on when I pulled into their driveway. Through the living room window, I could see them sitting on the couch, wide awake, waiting. I used my key and walked in without knocking. "Tatum, honey!" Mom jumped up, her face bright with excitement. "We were hoping you'd come by." Dad was grinning from ear to ear, something I hadn't seen in years. On the coffee table sat a bottle of champagne, 2 glasses, and what looked like a photo album. "What did you do?" My voice came out flat, emotionless. "Oh, sweetheart, sit down." Mom patted the couch beside her. "We have the most wonderful news." "Where's my money?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Mom's smile faltered for just a second before snapping back into place. "Your money? Honey, that was the family fund. We talked about this." "No, we didn't. That was for your retirement. I've been working myself to death for 10 years to build that fund." Dad cleared his throat. "Tatum, maybe you should sit down." "I'm fine standing." "Where is it?" Mom opened the photo album with trembling hands. "Look at these beautiful pictures. Robbie's wedding was absolutely magical. The venue, the flowers, the band, everything was perfect." My stomach dropped. "You spent it on Robbie's wedding?" "It was an investment." Mom's voice got higher, more defensive. "Ruby's family is very well connected. Her father owns 3 restaurants and has connections all over the city. This marriage is going to open so many doors for Robbie." "You spent my retirement fund on a party?" "It wasn't just a party," Dad said quietly. "It was important for our family's future." I stared at the photos. My brother in his $1,000 tuxedo, his bride in what looked like a designer gown, tables decorated with flowers that probably cost more than I made in a month. "How much?" I asked. "The wedding was beautiful," Mom started. "How much did you spend?" Dad looked at his hands. "About 120,000. The room started spinning. "That was everything, every penny I saved." "Tatum, you have to understand," Mom said, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. "Robbie needed this. He's starting his life, building his career. You're already established. You're independent. You don't need—" "I don't need what? Security? A future? The money I worked for?" "You're alone," Mom said, and her words hit like a slap. You'll be fine on your own. But Robbie has a wife now and hopefully children someday. This was an investment in the family's future. The front door opened and Robbie walked in, still glowing from his honeymoon tan. Tatum, perfect timing. He crossed the room and pulled me into a hug that felt like a python's grip. I wanted to thank you for making all this possible. The wedding was incredible, and Ruby's dad was so impressed. He's already talking about bringing me into one of his businesses. He stepped back, hands on my shoulders, beaming. You're the best sister ever. I know you sacrificed a lot over the years, and I want you to know it wasn't for nothing. This is going to change everything for our family. I looked at his face, genuinely grateful, completely oblivious to what had just been stolen from me. Then I looked at my parents sitting there with their champagne and their photo album, waiting for me to smile and celebrate. Something cold settled in my chest, something that felt like the opposite of love. I need to go, I said. But we haven't even opened the champagne, Mom called as I headed for the door. I drove home in silence, my mind completely blank. It wasn't until I was sitting in my apartment at 5 a.m. staring at my laptop screen that the thoughts started coming. They weren't the thoughts of a loving daughter anymore. I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table drinking coffee and staring at bank statements until the sun came up. When my phone rang at 8 a.m., I almost didn't answer. Tatum? Mom's voice was cautious. You left so suddenly last night. We're worried about you. Are you? Of course we are. You seemed upset. I laughed, and it sounded harsh even to me. Upset. Yeah, that's one word for it. Honey, I think you're overreacting. This is good news for the whole family. Ruby's father, Quincy, he's already invited us to dinner next week. He wants to discuss business opportunities with your father. What business opportunities? Dad's a retired high school math teacher. Well, maybe consulting or something. The point is, doors are opening because of this wedding, because of what we invested. What you stole. The line went quiet for a long moment. I think you need to come over so we can talk about this properly, Mom said finally. No. Tatum, I said no. I hung up and turned off my phone. By noon, I was sitting in Fiona's law office, my hands wrapped around a cup of tea I hadn't touched. They spent all of it. Fiona leaned back in her chair, her expression somewhere between shocked and furious. Every penny, 10 years of work gone in one day. Jesus, Tatum, I'm so sorry. Fiona had been my best friend since college. She was the only person who knew exactly how much I'd sacrificed for that fund. She'd watched me turn down trips, dates, promotions that would have required relocating, all to stay close and keep building that nest egg. What are my options? I asked. Legally, it's complicated. Your name was on the account, but so was your mother's. Technically, she had the right to withdraw the money, even though I was the only one putting money in. That's where it gets tricky. You'd have to prove the money was yours, not a gift to your parents. Do you have documentation showing your intent? I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken of my old planning documents. I kept everything, every deposit slip, every transfer record, every email where I talked about building their retirement fund. Fiona studied the documents. This helps, but a civil suit would be expensive and time-consuming. And messy. Family court is brutal. What about criminal charges? Theft? Again, with her name on the account, it's not technically theft. The bank followed proper procedures. I felt something crack inside my chest, so they just get away with it. I didn't say that. Fiona's voice got quieter. There might be other angles to consider. Like what? Well, if they use that money for something that could be considered a gift to your brother, there might be tax implications. The IRS has rules about large gifts between family members. I sat up straighter. What kind of rules? If your parents paid for a wedding that cost over a certain amount and your brother was the beneficiary, That could be considered a gift. Gifts over $17,000 per year have to be reported. Gifts over the lifetime exemption limit, which is about $12 million, are taxable. But this was only $120,000, right? But here's the thing. If they didn't report it properly, or if they can't prove the money was legitimately theirs to give, the IRS gets very interested. They don't like unreported gifts, especially large ones. I felt a spark of something that might have been hope. What would happen? Penalties, interest, possible audit. If they can't prove the source of the funds or justify the gift, it could get expensive fast. How expensive? Depends on how deep the IRS wants to dig, but penalties for unreported gifts can be substantial, plus interest, plus the cost of dealing with an audit. I stared at her. You're talking about revenge? I'm talking about following the law. If your parents made a large gift and didn't report it properly, that's their problem, not yours. My phone buzzed. A text from Robbie. Hey sis, can we talk? Mom said you were upset about something. I showed Fiona the message. He doesn't even know, does he? She said. Know what? That the money came from you. He thinks your parents just had $120,000 lying around. The realization hit me like a physical blow. He has no idea what I sacrifice. None of them do. I thought about Robbie's grateful hug, his talk about family investments and open doors. He genuinely believed our parents had funded his fairy tale wedding out of their own resources. What would I need to do? I asked. Hypothetically. Fiona pulled out a legal pad. Hypothetically, you'd need to document everything, prove the money was yours, show the transfer to your brother was a gift, and file the appropriate forms with the IRS. Forms? Form 3520 for starters. It's for reporting large gifts. If your parents didn't file it and you have evidence they should have, the IRS would be very interested in that information. I picked up my tea and finally took a sip. It was cold, but I barely noticed. How long would something like that take? The IRS? They move fast when money's involved, especially unreported money. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Robbie. Mom's really worried. She says you're not answering calls. Everything okay? I looked at Fiona. I need copies of everything, every form, every regulation, every piece of documentation I'd need. Tatum, are you sure about this? Once you start down this road? They made their choice, I said. Now I'm making mine. 3 days later, I was sitting in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by boxes I'd never bothered to move out. Mom had finally worn me down with her calls, and I'd agreed to come over to talk things through properly. The room looked exactly the same as when I'd left for college. Pale yellow walls, twin bed with the floral comforter, my high school honor roll certificate still hanging crooked on the wall. Down the hall, Robbie's room had been converted into Dad's home office years ago. I found your old photo albums, Mom said, settling beside me on the bed with a shoebox. I thought maybe looking at some memories would help you understand. She opened the box and pulled out a picture from my high school graduation. There I was in my cap and gown, standing between my parents, all of us beaming. You were always so responsible, Mom said softly, even as a little girl. Remember when you were 8 and you started that savings jar for the family vacation? I remembered. I'd saved my allowance for 6 months dreaming of Disney World. When I finally had enough, Mom had used the money to buy Robbie a new bike instead. You said we needed the bike more than a vacation, I said. Well, we did. Robbie's old one was falling apart, and you were always so understanding about these things. She flipped to another photo, my college graduation. I was alone in this one, holding my diploma. My parents had missed the ceremony because Robbie had a baseball tournament that same weekend. We were so proud of you, Mom continued, getting that job right out of school, being so independent. Where were you when this was taken? Mom glanced at the photo and her smile faltered slightly. Oh, that was the weekend of Robbie's championship game. You understood why we couldn't make it? Did I have a choice? Tatum, what's gotten into you? You're being so negative about everything. I pulled out another photo, my 25th birthday party. It was just me and two co-workers at a restaurant. My family had forgotten entirely because it was the same day as Robbie's engagement party. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course, honey. When was the last time you and Dad did something special for me? Just for me? She laughed nervously. What do you mean? We do things for you all the time. Like what? Well, we always include you in family dinners, and we ask about your work. That's not what I meant. Tatum, I don't understand what you're getting at. I stood up and walked to my old desk, where a stack of birthday cards sat in a neat pile. I'd kept every one my parents had given me over the years. I pulled out the most recent one. Happy birthday, Tatum. Hope your day is special. Love, Mom and Dad. Generic drugstore card, no personal message, signed in Mom's handwriting. I grabbed another one from 3 years ago. Happy birthday, Tatum. Another year older. Love, Mom and Dad. Same handwriting, same generic sentiment. I pulled out Robbie's birthday card from last year, which I'd found mixed in with mine. To our amazing son on his special day. We're so proud of the man you've become and all your accomplishments. Your future is so bright, and we can't wait to see what this new year brings. You've always been our shining star. All our love, Mom and Dad. I held both cards up. Do you see the difference? Mom's face went red. Those are just cards, Tatum. No, they're not. They're proof. Proof of what? That I've never been your daughter. I've been your retirement plan. That's not fair, isn't it? I sat back down, suddenly exhausted. Mom, I need you to be honest with me. When you took that money, did you think about what it meant to me? Of course I did. Really? Because when I asked where it went, you called it the family fund, like it was never mine to begin with. Mom twisted her hands in her lap. It was for the family. You're part of this family. Am I? Because it feels like I'm just the person who pays for everyone else's dreams. You're being dramatic. I worked 2 jobs for 10 years, Mom. 10 years? I haven't taken a real vacation since college. I've never owned a new car. I live in a studio apartment with furniture from garage sales, and I did it all gladly because I thought I was building something for you and Dad. You were. No, I was building something for Robbie, just like I always have. The front door slammed, and we heard Robbie's voice echoing through the house. Mom? Dad? You here? In Tatum's room, Mom called back. Robbie appeared in the doorway, still in his work clothes, looking concerned. Hey, what's going on? Dad said you two were having some kind of heart-to-heart. We're just looking at old photos, Mom said quickly. Robbie's eyes landed on the birthday cards scattered on the bed. He picked up his card and read it, then grabbed one of mine. Wow, Mom, you really phoned it in on Tatum's cards, huh? He laughed, but it sounded forced. They're fine, Mom said defensively. Another year older? Come on. He looked at me. Is this what you're upset about? Birthday cards? It's not about the cards, Robbie. Then what? Mom said you were mad about the wedding, but I don't get it. You should be happy for me. I stared at him, my little brother, golden boy, the one who'd never had to work for anything because I was always there to pick up the slack. Do you know where the money for your wedding came from? What do you mean? Mom and Dad paid for it. With what money? He shrugged. Their savings, I guess. They said they'd been putting money aside. They don't have savings, Robbie. Dad's pension barely covers their mortgage. His smile faded. What are you talking about? I looked at Mom, giving her one last chance to tell the truth. She stared at her hands. The money came from me, I said. Every penny. I've been building a retirement fund for them for 10 years, and they spent it all on your wedding. Robbie's face went white. That's not Mom? It was family money, Mom said weakly. No, I said, standing up. It was my money, my sacrifice, my future, and now it's gone. The room went completely silent. Robbie looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. I didn't know, he whispered. Of course you didn't, I said. You never had to know. That's the point. I walked past both of them toward the door. Where are you going? Mom called. Home. I have work to do. I spent the next week turning my dining table into a war room. Bank statements, tax documents, receipts, emails, everything spread out in neat piles. Fiona had given me a thick folder of IRS forms and regulations, and I was working through them methodically. My phone kept buzzing with texts from Robbie, but I ignored them all. The doorbell rang on Saturday morning. I looked through the peephole and saw him standing there with 2 coffee cups and a bag from my favorite bakery. I know you're in there, he called. Your car's in the driveway. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. Peace offering? He held up the coffee and pastries. I got those cinnamon rolls you like. What do you want, Robbie? To talk, to understand what happened. I stepped aside and let him in. His eyes immediately went to my dining table covered in paperwork. Jesus, Tatum, what is all this? Research. He set the coffee down and picked up one of the IRS forms. Form 3520? What's this for? Reporting large gifts. Gifts? He looked confused. What gifts? Your wedding. If Mom and Dad paid for it with money that wasn't theirs and you were the beneficiary, that's technically a gift. Gifts over a certain amount have to be reported to the IRS. The color drained from his face. Are you serious? Very. Tatum, you can't be thinking of what? Following the law? He sat down heavily in one of my chairs. This is insane. We're family. Are we? I pulled out my laptop and showed him the spreadsheet I'd been working on. Look at this. Every deposit I made into that account for 10 years, every overtime shift, every weekend job, every sacrifice, it's all documented. He scrolled through the numbers, his expression getting more stricken with each line. I had no idea it was this much. $127,000 plus interest. Tatum, I'm so sorry. If I had known, you would have what? Said no to the fancy wedding? Told Mom and Dad you didn't need their money? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. That's honest, at least. Look, what if I pay you back? Ruby and I could take out a loan or something. With what income? You're still working at that marketing firm making $40,000 a year. Ruby's dad might give me a job. Might? Based on what? Your impressive work history of 3 different jobs in 5 years? He flinched. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Robbie. That's the point. My phone rang. Mom's name appeared on the screen. Don't answer it, Robbie said quickly. Why not? Because she's freaking out. She's been calling me nonstop since you left the other day, asking what you meant about the money being yours. I answered the call and put it on speaker. Tatum, honey, I'm so glad you picked up. I've been thinking about our conversation and I realized there might have been some miscommunication. What kind of miscommunication? Well, about the retirement fund. I think you might have gotten the wrong impression about whose money it was. Robbie was shaking his head frantically, but I kept talking. What impression should I have gotten? That it was a family fund. We all contributed to it over the years. Really? Show me your contributions. Well, we contributed by raising you and supporting you. Mom, I have 10 years of bank records. Every single deposit came from my accounts. You and Dad never put a penny into that fund. The line went quiet. That's not how I remember it, she said finally. Then your memory is wrong. Tatum, you're being very hurtful right now. Am I? Or am I being accurate? Robbie grabbed the phone. Mom, I'm here too. We need to figure this out. Oh, Robbie, thank goodness. Maybe you can talk some sense into your sister. Actually, Mom, I think Tatum has a point. I saw the records. She really did put in all that money. But it was for the family. No, I said, taking the phone back. It was for you and Dad's retirement, not for Robbie's wedding, not for impressing his in-laws, for your security when you got older. We can still use it for that. With what money? You spent it all. Well, maybe Robbie and Ruby can help us when we need it. I looked at Robbie, who was staring at the floor. And can you? I asked him. I don't know. Maybe. Ruby's family has money. Ruby's family's money isn't your money. And even if it was, you think they're going to support Mom and Dad indefinitely? I don't know, Tatum. I'm trying to figure this out, too. Here's what I figured out, I said. Mom and Dad made a choice. They chose to gamble their future on your marriage to a rich girl. They chose to spend money that wasn't theirs without asking. They chose to lie about where it came from. We didn't lie, Mom's voice came through the speaker. We just didn't think you'd understand. Understand what? That you stole from me? It wasn't stealing. Then what was it? The line went quiet again. I think, Mom said carefully, that you're overreacting to this whole situation. I hung up. Robbie was staring at me. What are you going to do? I pulled out the Form 3520 I've been filling out. I'm going to file this with the IRS on Monday. Tatum, please, think about what you're doing. I have been thinking about it for a week straight. This could ruin them. They ruined themselves. He stood up, leaving his coffee untouched. I can't believe you're actually going through with this. I can't believe it took me this long to realize what kind of family I have. He walked to the door, then turned back. What if I could get the money back somehow? What if I could make this right? How? I don't know yet, but what if I could? I looked at him, really looked at him. For just a moment he looked like the little brother I used to protect from bullies, the one I'd helped with homework and driven to baseball practice. You have until Monday, I said. That's not enough time. Then you better get started. He left without another word. I sat back down at my dining table and picked up my pen. The forms weren't going to fill themselves out. Monday came and went. No call from Robbie. I mailed the forms to the IRS on Tuesday morning, then went to work like nothing had happened. But something had changed in me. I felt lighter, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't realize was there. My phone started ringing Wednesday evening, Mom's number. Tatum, we need to talk. About what? Robbie told us what you're planning to do. This is going too far. I already did it, Mom. The forms were submitted yesterday. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. You actually reported us to the IRS? I reported an unreported gift. The IRS will decide what to do about it. How could you do this to your own family? The same way you could steal from me, I guess. We didn't steal. I hung up. Thursday, Robbie showed up at my office. My assistant buzzed me. Your brother's here. He says it's urgent. I found him pacing in the lobby, his hair disheveled, still wearing yesterday's clothes. We need to talk, he said. Here? Anywhere, please. I led him to a conference room and closed the door. I tried, he said immediately. I really tried to get the money back. And? Ruby's dad won't lend it to us. He says we need to learn to manage our own finances before he'll trust us with that kind of money. Smart man. I talked to the bank about a loan, but they won't approve us for that much. My credit's not great, and Ruby's is tied up in student loans. What about your parents-in-law? Couldn't they just give you the money? Robbie's face flushed. I can't ask them for $120,000, Tatum. What would I even say? Hey, my parents stole my sister's retirement fund to pay for our wedding. Can you bail us out? You could try the truth. The truth would destroy Ruby's opinion of our family. Her parents already think we're... He trailed off. What? Poor beneath them. They're just very careful about money. Quincy built his business from nothing, and he doesn't respect people who are careless with finances. Like people who spend money that isn't theirs? Exactly. He slumped in his chair. Tatum, please, there has to be another way. There was. You had until Monday to figure it out. Can't you call the IRS back? Tell them it was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. But the penalties, Mom and Dad could lose their house. They should have thought of that before they spent my money. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at Riverside Cafe at 6 p.m. Come alone. Q. I stared at the message. Robbie, does Quincy have my phone number? What? No, why would he? Wait, let me see that. I showed him the text. His face went white. Oh, shit. What? He knows. Ruby's dad knows about the money. How? I don't know. Maybe Ruby figured it out. She's been asking questions about how Mom and Dad could afford such an expensive wedding on a teacher's pension. And you told her what? That they'd been saving for years. But she's smart, Tatum. She works in finance. She probably did the math. I looked at the text again. Why does he want to meet with me? I have no idea, but Quincy doesn't do anything without a reason. At 6 p.m., I walked into Riverside Cafe. Quincy was already there, sitting in a corner booth, wearing an expensive suit and reading something on his tablet. He looked up when I approached. Tatum, thank you for coming. Mr. Wallace, please call me Quincy. Sit. I slid into the booth across from him. He signaled the waitress for coffee. I'll get straight to the point, he said. I know about the retirement fund. What about it? That your parents used your money to pay for the wedding, that you reported them to the IRS, that my daughter's marriage is built on a foundation of theft and lies. I didn't say anything. Ruby doesn't know yet, he continued, but she will. She's been digging into your family's finances because something didn't add up. She's very thorough. Good for her. Indeed, she gets that from me. He leaned back. Here's my problem, Tatum. My daughter married into your family believing they were financially stable, responsible people. Now I discover they're thieves who stole from their own daughter to impress me. That about sums it up. Which puts me in an awkward position. I can't have my family associated with this kind of scandal. It's bad for business. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you what's going to happen. His voice got colder. You're going to withdraw your complaint to the IRS. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. Because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of family the Garcias are. Your parents will be social pariahs. Your brother will lose any chance of a decent job. And you'll be known as the vindictive sister who destroyed her own family over money. I stared at him. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining consequences. I have connections throughout this city. One word from me and your family becomes untouchable. And if I withdraw the complaint, then this stays between us. Your parents avoid the IRS penalties. Your brother keeps his marriage and everyone moves on. What about my money? Consider it a wedding gift, a very expensive lesson in family loyalty. I picked up my coffee and took a slow sip, buying time to think. There's just one problem with your plan, Quincy. What's that? You're assuming I care more about my family's reputation than I do about justice. His eyes narrowed. Everyone cares about their family's reputation. Not everyone. I stood up. Thanks for the coffee. Tatum, sit down. We're not finished. Yes, we are. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Quincy, you might want to have that conversation with Ruby sooner rather than later, because when the IRS starts their investigation, it's all going to come out anyway. I left him sitting there, his face red with anger. My phone started buzzing before I even reached my car. The calls started immediately. First Robbie, then Mom, then Dad, then Robbie again. I let them all go to voicemail. By Friday morning, I had 17 missed calls and a dozen text messages. The last one from Robbie was just, "Call me, urgent." I was finishing my coffee when someone pounded on my door. Through the peephole, I could see Ruby standing on my porch, her face flushed and angry. I opened the door. "Ruby, we need to talk, now. Come in." She stormed past me into the living room, her designer heels clicking on my hardwood floors. She looked around at my modest apartment like she was seeing it for the first time. "Is it true?" she demanded. "Is what true?" "That my wedding was paid for with stolen money." "Technically, it wasn't stolen." "Don't give me technicalities. Did my husband's parents take money that belonged to you to pay for our wedding?" I sat down on my couch. "Yes." She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "How much?" $127,000. "Jesus Christ!" She started pacing. "My father told me last night, he said you filed some kind of report with the IRS. "I did." "Do you have any idea what this means? What this could do to Robbie, to our marriage?" "I'm starting to get a picture." She whirled around to face me. "This isn't a joke, Tatum. My father is furious. He's talking about cutting ties with our entire family." "Your entire family or just mine?" "Don't be smart with me. You know what I mean." "Actually, I don't. You married Robbie, not me. This is between me and my parents." "No, it's not." She sat down across from me, her voice getting more desperate. "Don't you see? If this comes out, if there's an investigation, it reflects on all of us. My father's business, his reputation. He can't be associated with this kind of scandal. Then maybe you should have asked more questions about where the money came from." I trusted my husband's family. I thought they were honest people. "So did I." She stared at me for a long moment. "You really hate them, don't you?" "I don't hate anyone. I'm just done being their safety net." "But you're destroying innocent people in the process." "Like who?" "Like me, like Robbie. We didn't know where the money came from. Robbie's not innocent. He's 28 years old. He should have questioned how his parents suddenly had 6 figures to spend on his wedding. He trusted them, and I trusted them too. Look how that worked out." Ruby pulled out her phone. "What if I paid you back? Right now, I could transfer the money today." "You have $127,000 just sitting around?" "I have a trust fund. I could access it." I studied her face. "Why would you do that?" "To make this go away, to protect my marriage." "And then what? Your parents-in-law get away with stealing from me and you're out 6 figures?" "It's better than the alternative." "Which is?" "My father destroys your family, and probably mine too in the process." My phone rang. Fiona's name appeared on the screen. "I need to take this," I told Ruby. "Tatum?" Fiona's voice was tight. "Where are you?" "At home." "Why?" "I just got a call from someone claiming to represent Quincy Wallace. They're threatening to sue me for advising you on the IRS filing." I looked at Ruby, who was watching me intently. "On what grounds?" "They're claiming I helped you file a false report, that I'm part of some conspiracy to damage their family's reputation." "That's ridiculous." "Of course it is. But they're also threatening to file a complaint with the state bar, claiming I violated ethics rules by helping you target your own family." "Can they do that?" "They can try. It would be expensive to defend, even if it's baseless." Ruby was leaning forward, clearly trying to hear both sides of the conversation. Fiona, I'm sorry. I never meant to drag you into this. I know, but Tatum, these people play hardball. They have resources and connections. Are you sure you want to keep fighting this? I looked around my small apartment, my garage sale furniture, my secondhand everything, the life I'd built on sacrifice and careful budgeting. Yes, I said, I'm sure. Okay, then we need to be smart about this. Don't talk to anyone from their side without me present, and document everything. I hung up and turned back to Ruby. Your father's going after my lawyer now? He's protecting his interests by threatening innocent people, by doing whatever it takes to keep his family's name clean. Interesting definition of clean. Ruby stood up. Last chance, Tatum. Let me pay you back. You withdraw the complaint, and this all goes away quietly. And my parents learned nothing. Robbie learns nothing. The cycle continues. What cycle? The one where I sacrifice everything and everyone else benefits. So this is about more than money. It was always about more than money. She walked to the door, then turned back. You know, I actually feel sorry for you. Why? Because you're so focused on punishing them that you can't see you're punishing yourself too. When this is over, when the dust settles, you'll still be alone. But now you'll be alone and bitter. Maybe, but I'll also be free. She left without another word. I sat in my quiet apartment thinking about what she'd said. My phone buzzed with another text from an unknown number. This is your last warning. Drop the complaint or face the consequences. You have 24 hours. I screenshot the message and forwarded it to Fiona with a note. Add this to the evidence file. Then I turned off my phone and went to make dinner. I had a feeling it was going to be a long weekend. The dinner invitation came from Mom on Sunday afternoon. Family dinner tonight at 6, her voicemail said. We need to discuss this situation like adults. Ruby and Quincy will be joining us. I almost didn't go, but something about the formal tone, the mention of Quincy being there, it felt like a trap I needed to walk into with my eyes open. I arrived at my parents' house at exactly 6 p.m. 3 cars were already in the driveway, Mom's sedan, Robbie's Honda, and a black Mercedes that had to be Quincy's. The dining room table was set with Mom's good china, the kind she only used for special occasions. Everyone was already seated when I walked in, Mom and Dad at opposite ends, Robbie and Ruby on one side, Quincy across from them. The only empty chair was next to Quincy. Tatum, sweetheart, Mom said, her voice artificially bright. You look lovely. Sit, sit. I took the chair next to Quincy, who nodded politely but didn't speak. I made your favorite, Mom continued, bringing out a casserole dish, chicken and rice. The small talk felt surreal. Dad asked about my work. Ruby complimented Mom's cooking. Quincy discussed the weather. We could have been any normal family having Sunday dinner, except for the tension crackling under every word. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. So, Tatum, we wanted to talk about this misunderstanding. What misunderstanding? About the retirement fund, Mom said carefully. I think we all got our wires crossed about what that money was for. I don't think there's any confusion. I put money in, you took it out, you spent it on Robbie's wedding. Quincy set down his fork. Perhaps we could discuss a resolution that works for everyone. I'm listening. Your parents have agreed to pay you back over time, monthly installments until the full amount is repaid. I looked at Mom and Dad. With what money? We'll figure it out, Dad said quietly. Maybe I could do some tutoring, or Mom could go back to work part-time. You're 60 and 57 years old. You think you can earn $127,000 with tutoring and part-time work? We have to try, Mom said. We made a mistake and we want to make it right. The mistake was spending money that wasn't yours, Making it right would have been asking permission first. Robbie leaned forward. Tatum, please, we're trying to fix this. Are you? Or are you trying to make it go away so Quincy doesn't cut ties with your family? Quincy's expression didn't change, but Ruby's face flushed. Both, Quincy said calmly. I believe in solving problems efficiently. This isn't a business problem, it's a family problem. All problems can be solved with the right approach. The doorbell rang. Mom looked confused. I'm not expecting anyone. Dad got up to answer it. We heard voices in the hallway, then Dad returned with a man in a suit carrying an official-looking envelope. Nora Garcia? The man asked. That's me, Mom said nervously. I have a certified delivery for you. Please sign here. Mom's hand shook as she signed the receipt. The man left, and she stared at the envelope like it might explode. What is it? Dad asked. Mom tore it open and pulled out several official documents. Her face went white as she read. It's from the IRS, she whispered. They're auditing us, and there's a penalty assessment for unreported gifts. She handed the papers to Dad, whose face crumpled as he read. How much? Robbie asked. Dad's voice was barely audible. $43,000 in penalties, plus interest, plus the cost of the audit. The room went completely silent except for the ticking of Mom's antique clock. Quincy reached for the papers. Dad handed them over without resistance. Quincy read through them methodically, his expression growing darker with each page. This is a disaster, he said finally. We can fight it, Ruby said desperately. Get a lawyer, appeal the decision. With what money? Quincy's voice was ice cold. They can't even pay back what they stole, let alone fight the federal government. We didn't steal anything, Mom said weakly. You took money that wasn't yours without permission and used it for your son's benefit. That's theft. He stood up. Ruby, we're leaving. Dad, wait! No, I will not have my family associated with this scandal. The wedding was paid for with stolen money, which means our entire relationship with this family is built on fraud. Robbie jumped up. Mr. Wallace, please, we can work this out. There's nothing to work out. You're married to my daughter under false pretenses. Your parents are criminals, and you're either complicit or incompetent. That's not fair, Ruby said, tears starting to fall. Fair? Quincy turned to me. You want to know what's fair? Fair would have been your parents asking before they spent money that wasn't theirs. Fair would have been your brother questioning where $100,000 came from. Fair would have been someone in this family having the integrity to do the right thing. He looked around the table. Instead, I find out my daughter's wedding was funded by theft, and when the victim tries to seek justice, you all gang up on her to make the problem disappear. We're trying to make it right, Dad said. No, you're trying to avoid consequences. There's a difference. Quincy walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back to me. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. They made their choice when they took your money. Everything that happens now is on them. Ruby was sobbing now. Dad, please don't do this. I'm not doing anything, Ruby. They did this, all of it. He left. Ruby looked around the table at all of us, her face streaked with tears and mascara. I hope you're happy, she said to me. You got your revenge. This isn't revenge, I said quietly. This is consequences. She ran after her father, leaving the four of us sitting around the table with Mom's good china and the IRS papers scattered between the serving dishes. Well, I said, standing up, thanks for dinner. I walked out, leaving them sitting in the wreckage of their own making. My phone was buzzing with texts before I even reached my car, but I didn't look at them. I had nothing left to say. The phone calls stopped after 3 weeks. The texts dwindled to nothing. Even Robbie gave up trying to reach me. I was working late on a Thursday when Fiona knocked on my office door. Got a minute? She asked, holding 2 cups of coffee. Always. What's the update? Your parents' audit is moving forward. The IRS isn't budging on the penalties." She sat down across from my desk. "But there's something else. I got a call from Ruby's divorce attorney." I looked up from my computer. "She's divorcing Robbie?" "Papers were filed yesterday. She's citing fraud as grounds, specifically that the marriage was entered into under false financial pretenses." Wow. It gets better. Quincy cut all business ties with your brother. Robbie lost the job he was promised, and apparently Ruby's been staying with her parents since the dinner. The marriage lasted exactly 6 weeks. I leaned back in my chair. "How do you feel about that?" "Honestly, I don't feel anything." "Is that terrible?" "After what they put you through? No, it's not terrible. It's human." My office phone rang. The caller ID showed my parents' number. I stared at it for 4 rings, then answered. "Hello, Dad." "Tatum?" His voice sounded older, tired. "Can we talk?" "We're talking now." "I mean in person. Please." I looked at Fiona, who shrugged. "Where?" "Neutral ground. That coffee shop on 5th Street." "When?" "Now. I'm already here." I found him sitting in a corner booth, looking smaller than I remembered. His hair seemed grayer, his shoulders more stooped. There was a cup of coffee in front of him that looked untouched. "Thank you for coming," he said as I sat down. "What do you want, Dad?" "To apologize. Really apologize, not the half-hearted attempts your mother and I made before." I didn't say anything. "We were wrong," he continued, "not just about taking the money, but about everything. The way we treated you, the way we favored Robbie, the way we took your sacrifices for granted." "Okay." "I know okay doesn't fix anything. I know sorry doesn't give you back 10 years of your life." "No, it doesn't." He pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. "This is what we can offer. It's not much, but it's a start." I opened it. A cashier's check for $8,000. "We sold your mother's jewelry and my golf clubs, canceled our cable and phone plans, switched to the cheapest everything. We're going to pay you back, Tatum, every penny, even if it takes the rest of our lives." "Dad, you can't earn $120,000 on a teacher's pension." "Maybe not, but we can try, and we can make sure you know that we understand what we did to you." I stared at the check. $8,000. It was more than I'd expected, but a fraction of what they owed. "Where's Mom?" "At home. She wanted to come, but she's not handling this well. The shame, the embarrassment, losing Robbie's marriage, it's eating her up." "And Robbie?" "Moved back in with us. Lost his job, his wife, his future with the Wallace family. He's pretty broken up about it." "I'm sure he is." Dad leaned forward. "Tatum, I need you to know something. This isn't your fault. None of it. We made our choices and we're living with the consequences. You don't owe us forgiveness and you don't owe us a relationship. But I needed you to know that we finally understand what we lost." "What did you lose?" "The best daughter any parent could ask for. Someone who loved us enough to sacrifice her own dreams for our security. Someone who deserved so much better than what we gave her." I folded the check and put it in my purse. "I need to go." Will you consider staying in touch? Not for our sake, but because you're our daughter and we love you." I stood up. "I'll think about it." "That's more than we deserve." I walked toward the door, then turned back. "Dad?" "Yes?" "Get some help for Mom and for Robbie. This kind of shame and guilt, it can destroy people if they don't deal with it properly." "We will, thank you." I drove home through the city I'd lived in my whole life, past the office where I'd worked overtime for years, past the apartment complex where I'd chosen the cheapest unit to save money for people who didn't appreciate it. But for the first time in a decade, I wasn't driving toward an obligation or a sacrifice or someone else's emergency. I was just driving home to my own life. My phone buzzed with a text from Chelsea, my ex from college. "Saw your LinkedIn update about the promotion. Congratulations. Want to grab dinner and catch up? I'd gotten the promotion 2 weeks ago, senior financial advisor, a position I'd been qualified for years, but never pursued because I was too focused on my family's needs. I texted back, I'd love that. How about Saturday? Her response came immediately. Perfect. I have so much to tell you. I pulled into my driveway and sat in my car for a moment, looking at my small apartment. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Paid for with my own money, decorated with my own choices, filled with my own dreams instead of other people's expectations. My phone rang. Fiona's name appeared on the screen. How did it go? She asked. Better than expected. He apologized, really apologized. And and I think maybe someday I might be able to have a relationship with them again, but not now, not yet. That's fair. What about Robbie? What about him? Are you going to reach out? I thought about my little brother, the golden child who had lost his golden future. Part of me felt sorry for him, but a bigger part of me remembered 28 years of being invisible while he shined. No, I said. He's an adult. He can figure out his own life. Good for you. I hung up and walked into my apartment. On my kitchen counter was a stack of travel brochures I'd picked up during lunch. Italy, Greece, Japan, all the places I dreamed of visiting but never could afford. Now I could afford them. Now I could afford a lot of things. I opened my laptop and started browsing flights to Rome. Karma hadn't asked for my forgiveness, just my patience. And now that it had done its work, I was finally free to live my own life. The best revenge, it turned out, wasn't destruction. It was freedom.